Yo, yo, yo! Welcome back to the MMA Short Show. As always, your boy, Stephen Moustaris. And pardon me, I got two jealous dogs. You got Queen Gracie right here, and then you got the new pup, which is why she's all over me, because she's jealous of the new one. Little Penelope right here. And excuse the little onesie, she just got fixed. But, they're here to, join and talk some MMA today. But, man, UFC 302 this weekend finally. And it's really starting to settle in, man. The Dustin Poirier really has a chance here, to give us one of the greatest feel-good moments of all time in MMA. But before I even entertain the possibility of Dustin Poirier climbing the mountain and everything, I do want to sit here and just, praise Islam Makhachev for a second. This guy is good for a reason. This guy is praised for a reason. This guy has been hyped up by Khabib and Team AKA, DC, Luke Rockhold, Cain Velasquez, Javier Mendez, all these guys for so long. For a reason, because this man is a dog. This guy is phenomenal. There's arguments out there. He's probably better than Khabib. It's like when it comes to the most well-rounded, MMA fighter. Personally, I still think Khabib, when it comes to just being a competitor and getting the job done, I think Khabib's going to get it done probably maybe one more time out of 10 fights than Islam would. But that's all. That's how good Islam Makhachev is, man. But I mean, you guys go back and look. It's always the Usmans, the John Jones, the Izzies, the GSPs, the Anderson Silvas, whoever, the Aldos, the Max Holloways, the Volks. It doesn't matter who it is. They get so good and so dominant for such a long time that we almost dismiss just how good they are. And we stop talking about how great they are until until the ride's over. Until, oh my gosh, that guy finally did get him. But let's go back and look at the last 8 title defenses, or go back and look at all these dominant performances that they've put on. And I will say, man, it does feel a little disrespectful towards Islam Makhachev how much I'm seeing only people focusing on Dustin Poirier. But I mean, there is a reason to it, man. There is a pure reason for it. When I go back and look at some of the most beautiful moments, especially when it comes to, guys kind of just going out there fighting for a really long time and finally, reaching the mountaintop towards the end of their career, clearly I think we all remember Michael Bisping comes up, and it's such a short list that I think I could only come up with 6 or 7 guys, and some of them are even argued that there might not even be up there in that list. But you got the Michael Bispings when he beat Luke Rockhold. You got Glover Teixeira, who was around forever. I mean, that guy was doing the damn thing in Pride, came over in the UFC, was doing it. He was doing it all over the place, and then comes in and wins his championship later on in life just a few years ago. When he beat Jan Block, which was one of the crazier things I've ever seen. I mean, there's Randy Couture when he, went up and took out Tim Sylvia, or honestly, any one of his 3 title reigns at the heavyweight division. I mean, they were just beautiful moments, man, especially how old he was and everything. And then you can and then it starts getting a little wacky there, where you can maybe bring up the GSP return when he beat Bisping. You can maybe bring up Strickland when he beat Izzy. And that's more so because of how dominant Izzy was and how much, although he's great, he does, when you're that good and you're that dominant, you do get haters that want to see you lose all the time. And then you got Dominic Cruz when he made his return, when he beat TJ Dillashaw after all the injuries that man went through. And seriously, Dominic Cruz has one of the wilder, the careers when you go back and watch him and go, man, this guy really he was already one of the best ever, but this man got just absolutely derailed by injuries left and right. And the fact that he kept up with it and kept coming back and kept, winning after all these times, that stuff's up there. And then maybe Evan Tanner, now that we go back and look that, now that he's passed away and everything, and you can go back and look, I think he was 35, 36 years old when he won his championship. But I mean, that's the list right there. But Dustin Poirier beating Islam Makhachev at UFC 302, that could be on the short list of one of the most beautiful moments ever. This man Dustin Poirier has been through it all. It's so crazy to go back and look at his career and how it started. I mean, clearly you can go back and watch some of his WEC fights. That dude was doing the damn thing, man. They had some of the greatest talent, greatest fights. And I mean, you guys go back and look at the proof's in the pudding. Hindsight's 2020. When you go back and, watch how good and how dominant the WEC fighters were that came over to the UFC, I mean, those guys have been killers for years. And then his very first fight for the UFC, I mean, this one always blows my mind how people forget about it, but there's an argument out there that when Dustin Poirier stepped in for Jose Aldo, who got hurt and had to back out of his fight against Josh Grisby, this man, Josh Grisby, at the time was 14-1, was on a 7 or 8 fight win streak, was just dominating everybody. He was truly one of the first real grapplers we ever had seen. And you never know. That night, if Aldo would have went out and fought, and you never know, it could have been for the belt, and Grisby could have actually dominated him on the grappling. There's a possibility out there, just how good Josh Grisby was at the time, that there might have never been that Aldo dominance. And I personally think it's one of the bigger what ifs in MMA history, especially the UFC. If Dustin Poirier doesn't fight Josh Crispy that night, who knows? But Dustin Poirier steps in and beat him so bad that Josh Crispy went on to lose his next 3 fights and retired, never fought again. Like, this is how good this man was. And for how good he was against the number one contender who was supposed to fight for the belt that night, he never got his chance and then got pushed down in the line. And then throughout the years, he might have fallen to some guys like Michael Johnson. He might have fallen to the guys like Conor McGregor. He might have done all that. But when his run between like 2015 to 2020, even, you could probably say, when the whole Dan Hooker thing, like, there was no way in hell that you could possibly deny Dustin Poirier. There's one constant when we look at the top of the 155 division, when we look at the greatest of the greatest, who's coming in, who's come out, like the Khabibs, the Conor, the Eddie Alvarez, the Gaethje, the Tony Fergusons, you can name them all. The only constant that we have every single time is Dustin Poirier, since all I can remember. Like, the run there, 2018, 2017, 2019, I think, when it was just Eddie Alvarez, Gaethje, Tony Ferguson, and Dustin Poirier just holding down the fort at 155. Like, these are the moments that you fall in love with Dustin Poirier. And although he's got his fair share and plenty of great knockouts, great performances, great, everything, every time that you do think he does fall down a little bit, like we said with Khabib and all these guys, he gets that new up-and-comer that, we write him off. It's, he's a little too old. We've already seen Dustin. All right, here comes Dan Hooker. He beats Dan Hooker. Here comes Benoit Saint-Denis. He beats Benoit Saint-Denis. Oh, here comes Michael Chandler, the new hot thing. He beats Michael Chandler. Oh, we're going to give you Conor McGregor again, who's already knocked you out, and he's probably going to do it again. Oh, you're going to go out there and beat him twice. Like, Dustin Poirier is literally the epitome of everything. And then when he gets knocked out by Justin Gaethje, he comes back out and puts a performance on Benoit Saint-Denis. And luckily, that's how the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, where you got Max Holloway goes out there and does what he does to Gaethje. And now Dustin's got like this perfect chance to come out here and just shock the world. And it's a lot like when Bisping, although his was like a 5-day notice against Luke Rockhold, I mean, Dustin Poirier only had 5 weeks, 6 weeks to just hop right in there because Arman Tsarukyan backed out. Like, I mean, everything is written in the stars right now for this man, Dustin Poirier. If you guys believe in the MMA gods or fate or whatever that may be, like, I mean, there's no coincidence at all that at the Prudential Center on Saturday night, that it's on Lafayette Street, which is the exact city that this man, the king of Louisiana, aka Dustin Poirier, is from and lives at. Like, I mean, it just has everything written in the stars right now for this man to come out there and win. And if he does go out there and somehow chin Islam or somehow pulls Gilly and actually gets this done, like, what better way would it be for Dustin Poirier to climb that mountain to finish the story like that? I hate saying finishing the story because it's WWE stuff, it's Cody Rhodes stuff, but still, if he goes out there and does finish his career and retires on Saturday night with a win or a loss, like, who better than to beat somebody like Islam Makhachev, who's argued to be one of the greatest champions? If it wasn't for Khabib, he's probably like argued the greatest champion at 155. And I mean, it just sounds beautiful, man. And as much as I want this to happen, I just don't know, man. I'm such a believer in Islam Makhachev, and like I said in the beginning of the video, there better come a time when Islam finally gets his flowers and starts getting his, praise and whatnot, and this is just the perfect start of it. I mean, if Islam goes out there and just absolutely dismantles Dustin Poirier or just gets the job done in whichever way and finishes him, which he probably will, and he has the blueprint to do it, I mean, this man goes out there and fights Arman Tsarukyan and gets that done, even though he's already beat him once, but we all know it's like, 21, 22-year-old Arman. But if he goes out there and gets that done and goes up to 170 and fights whoever the hell's champion at 170, I mean, my goodness, man, Islam Makhachev is going to be on pace to do everything that Khabib wanted to do and more. So I do want to see people absolutely loving Islam after this fight because he does deserve it. But we can't deny, man, if Dustin Poirier goes out there and wins this fight, it's got to be the number one most beautiful moment, or at least like most just like, I guess, like heart-wrenching moment, maybe a most shocking moment, I guess, especially a win over Islam, because the only chance he's going to win is that somehow finishing in this man. He's no way he's going to go out there and dominate him for 5 rounds or grind out a split decision or whatever. Like, I'm just absolutely excited to see this, and with 4 days left, I mean, when it comes to any sport, I'm always down to see the underdog story. I'm always down to see the Cinderella story, so I'm going to be rooting for Dustin Poirier. I can't wait for him to walk out. What plays the cost to be the boss? James Brown doing his thing. Like, that's one of the greatest walkouts ever. I can't wait to see what's going to happen on Saturday night. And although I'm definitely expecting a pretty dominant performance by Islam Makhachev, I am 100% rooting for Dustin Poirier and just to shock the world and to have his little moment. And regardless if he retires, if he loses and retires, if he keeps fighting, I mean, Dustin Poirier is going to go down as, one of the fan favorites of all time. I don't care what it is, And he's just proof in the pudding out there as well. No matter what, you might not have to become champion in your career to become a beloved one. Like, he's right there with the Diaz brothers and everything. Like, this man is an icon. So it was absolutely a blessing to watch this man's career, and I wish him the absolute best Saturday night. And clearly, he's going to have the majority of the MMA community on his side. But you guys let me know what you guys think. Would this be one of the greatest moments of all time? Would this be a beautiful moment? Is everybody just hyping this up a little too much because of what could be? And are we just completely looking past Islam about to put on one of the greatest performances ever? So you guys let me know. As always, your boy Stephen Moustaris. Nice little feature with the dogs, but as always, the MMA Short Show. And let's go, baby.